Hello to you all. This is an introduction of African economy. The continent of Africa is blessed and full of natural resources, as from the north to the south and the east to the west. For mineral resources in one hand, there are diamonds, gold, iron ore, bauxite, aluminium, uranium, phosphate, and many others. On the other hand, there are varieties of agricultural produce and fertile soil. As for tourism, it is full of wildlife, sea creatures, beautiful landscape, woodland, deep forests, waterfalls, lakes, running water from hills to the valleys, the wonderful sea view, the cloud, the snow, the rainbow reflecting on the mountain from end to end, the inactive volcanic mountains, the sand dune, the desert, and the semi-arid areas. You may find all these natural resources in the continent of one race Africa. But yet, the Africans are dying of hunger, drought, malnutrition, immigrating to other continents for survival. If the question is to be answered, who are responsible for the impoverishment of African economy? Let us look into the economy of each one of the countries in Africa. Then you may give your opinion if wish. The world is part of Africa, and Africa is part of the world we live in. Do not destroy the wonders and beauties of our only beloved earth. Thank you so much. The economy of Ivory Coast. The economy of Ivory Coast is stable and currently growing. In the aftermath of political instability in recent decades, the Ivory Coast is largely market-based and depends heavily on the agricultural sector. Almost 70% of the Ivorian people are engaged in some form of agricultural activity. After several years of lagging performance, the Ivorian economy began a comeback in 1994. Due to the devaluation of the CFA franc and improved prices for cocoa and coffee, growth in non-traditional primary exports such as pineapples and rubber, limited trade and banking liberalization, offshore oil and gas discoveries, and generous external financing and debt rescheduling by multilateral leaders and France. Now, multilateral lenders and France. A majority of the population remains dependent on smallholder crop production. Principal exports are cocoa, coffee, and tropical woods. Principal U.S. exports to Ivory Coast are rice and wheat, plastic materials and resins, craft paper, agricultural chemicals, telecommunication, and oil and gas equipment. Principal U.S. imports are cocoa and cocoa products, petroleum, rubber, and coffee. Despite attempts by the government to diversify the economy, it is still largely dependent on agriculture and related activities. Animal husbandry. Much of the country lies within tsetse-infested areas. These include cattle, hogs, goats, sheep, poultry, and fresh milk, which are concentrated in the more northerly districts. Nomadic production accounts for around half of cattle herds and is mainly undertaken by non-Ivorian herders. Settled herders are concentrated in the dry north, mainly in Korhogo, Ferkessedougon, Bouna, Boundali, Odienne, and Dabakala. Sheep and goat rearing is a secondary activity for many herders. Pork production is periodically affected by African swine fever. Potential increases are limited by the fact that Muslims who do not eat pork, which they consider to be unclean, account for 40% of the population. Fishing. In 1964, a modern fishing wharf was opened at Abidjan, which is Africa's largest tuna fishing port, handling about 100 million tons of tuna each year. There are fish hatcheries in Bouake, Bamoro, and Korhogo. Commercial fishing for tuna is carried on in the Gulf of Guinea. Sardines are also caught in quantity. Forestry. There are three types of forest in Ivory Coast: rainforest, deciduous forest, and the secondary forest of the savannah region. Ivory Coast has a large timber industry due to its large forest coverage. The protected forest area in Ivory Coast is Tai National Park, Parc National de Taïre, at 3,600 square kilometers, that is 1,390 square miles, in the country's far southwest that is home to over 150 endemic species and many other endangered species such as the pigeon, hippopotamus, and various species of monkeys. Monetary unit: €1 is equivalent to 655.957 CFA franc, subject to changes. Terrain. Ivory Coast terrain can generally be described as a large plateau rising gradually from sea level in the south to almost 500-meter elevation in the north. The nation's natural resources have made it into a comparatively prosperous nation in the African economy. The southeastern region of Ivory Coast is marked by coastal inland lagoons that start at the Ghanaian border and stretch along the eastern half of the coast. The southern region, especially the southwest, is covered with dense tropical moist forests. The eastern Guinean forests extend from Sassandra River across the south central and southeast portion of Ivory Coast and east into Ghana, while the western Guinean lowland forests extend west from the Sassandra River into Liberia and southeastern Guinea. The mountain of Dix-Ute mountains region in the west of the country, near the border with Guinea and Liberia, are home to the Guinean mountain forest. The Guinean forest-savannah mosaic belt extends across the middle of the country from east to west, and is the transition zone between the coastal forest and the interior savannas. The forest-savannah mosaic interlaces forest, savanna, and grassland habitats. Northern Ivory Coast is part of the West Sudanian savanna ecoregion of the tropical and subtropical grasslands, savannas and shrublands, and shrublands biome. It is a zone of lateritic or sandy soils, with vegetation decreasing from south to north. The terrain is mostly flat to undulating plain with mountains in the northwest. The lowest elevation in Ivory Coast is at sea level on the coasts. The higher elevation is Mount Nimba in the far west of the country along the border with Guinea or Liberia. The rivers. The Kavala River drains the western border area of the Ivory Coast and eastern Liberia. It forms the southern two-thirds of the international boundary between Liberia and Côte d'Ivoire. The Sassandra River forms in the Guinea Highlands and drains much of the western part of the Ivory Coast east of the Kara River. The Bandama River is the longest river in the Ivory Coast with a length of some 800 kilometers, that's 497 miles, draining the east central part of the country. In 1973, the Koso Dam was constructed at Koso on the Bandama creating Lake Koso. The capital, Yamoussoukro, is located near the river south of the lake. The Komori River originates on the Sikasso Plateau of Burkina Faso and briefly follows the border between Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast before entering Ivory Coast. It drains the northeastern and easternmost portions of the country before emptying into the eastern end of the Ebria Lagoon and ultimately the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean. Its waters contribute to the Komo National Park